Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Song Explorers Club meeting. This evening we have a very special event. We have the guests, Juan Franco and Tomas Bernal from 12th grade. And this evening they're going to be sharing part of the results of their senior project based in hip hop. So without further ado, I will pass the mic to the gentleman and take it away, boys.
Hey, thank you, Mister. Um, First of all, my name is Juan Franco. My partner is Tomas Bernal. Before we start with the cultural presentation, we wanted to speak about our senior project a bit for you to get in the background of knowing why is this presentation important. So we started with the idea of this project when we were in 11th grade, and the main idea became because one day we had the crazy idea of making a rap event in the school. We weren't expecting any audience, or it was just for fun, and it resulted in an event. I would say even bigger, or as the school events that happen in the Coliseum. So we started noticing a pattern that when there was a match, interclasses match, and there was a rap event, most of the students would go to the rap event. So it came with the idea, and mainly basing in that kind of events that we made in 11th grade. And yeah, now Thomas is going to continue.
These little rap events went from ourselves, like the 11th grade promotion. So these little rap events started as something between friends, and we post. I remember what we post, that on Tuesday at the second break at lunch it will be a rap event. That's the thing, nothing else. So we appear in the back of the music classroom, like six guys with a speaker, and then a bunch of people start to approximate from every grade, and it was awesome. Actually, it was a very fun experience. We start battling. So was very fun. It was very fun, and so with this impact that we saw in the school, we start to see that hip hop culture, freestyle, rap battles have a huge impact on teenagers. That teenagers were seeing it like something that they enjoy. So we start doing like a little idea between Franco and me of doing a senior project about it, something new, something unexpected. So we're going to start with the presentation, telling you what is the hip hop movement, hip hop culture.
Okay, without further ado, let's start with the culture presentation. Okay, so what is the hip hop culture? First of all, we're going to do this presentation in focal points for it to be straightforward and nothing would miss. So the first point is the cultural movement. Often hip hop is confused with rap, and it is not the same thing. Rap is a part of the hip hop culture, but hip hop culture is not just rap. So what is actually hip hop culture? As most of music comes from movements for social from social movements. One example that I really like to use is the hippie movement in the 1970s, 1960s. That hippie movement created the psychedelic rock, the rock, the just straightforward rock, and even heavy metal with Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin. That type of movement created this. So what movement created rap? Well, the hip hop culture created rap. And how did the hip hop culture appear? Well, as most of the cultural movements is started in the United States. This started because of I'm sorry, the oppression that young African Americans, Puerto Ricans, and mostly immigrants were feeling in the United States. So what did they do? taking in account cultural and roots basis of long ancestors, they started to create something called rapping and hip hop. It has four elements. So these four elements were created by these young folks that wanted to express themselves but didn't know how to and find a way in the music. But also they found a way in painting, that is graffiti, and they find a way in dancing, that it's breakdancing. So this culture is just not music. The hip hop culture is art. Is the way you express yourself by art. Does it mean that uh, um, a little painting is hip hop culture? Well, no. The painting that is identified with the hip hop culture is called graffiti. Graffiti is often confused with vandalism, but uh, as long as the walls of the paintings are agreed to be used by that purpose, I would not consider vandalism. Although mostly graffiti is a way of protest. For example, you see these big marches because of, for example, I don't know, feminism. What do? They graffiti in a way of protest. The way they graffiti or of the emphasis that are they are doing that graffiti is the way that changes it from art to vandalism. And now, last, the diversity. The diversity is a focal point of the culture. Why? Because this was created by oppressed groups as the Latin Puerto Ricans and the African Americans in Bronx and in New York City, who started to create this movement. And this diversity in population generated different music genres and different things that compared to each other are really different. So yeah, that's really resumed what hip hop is.
Okay, how it was born? The This movement has a big past. It started when the West African storytellers start to tell their stories, their cultural stories, their classic stories with rhythm. This rhythm was followed by drum beats. As it says there, drum beats or percussion instruments were very important for following like a little beat in their storyteller because it was easier for them to memorize. This was also found out in the Caribbean islands with the Caribbean folks that they started to tell them stories with rhythm by a drum beat or in sometimes in the stories they include little air instruments like flutes, but most of them were used always with drums. Okay, these poets they became with the name of singing poets or poets by itself because when they start to read with the rhymes and they start to tell a story, they tell in a story with the emotions, with the feelings of the people that were in that story, making them like little poets. So people from the high class, because this was a low class activity, people from the high class starting to see that we're like little poets, but not consider them as poets because poet writers were something from the high class, something that were used to work for the king, the queen. So these were like a poor activity, not poor, like a low class activity for them to entertain. Okay, modern hip hop. This modern hip hop emerged in the 1970s when the racism in the United States was a big issue. Racism in the United States was for today people is like something that is so impact because racism in that age you could see bathroom for men, for women, and for black people. This was the kind of racism. So black people started to express mostly between them their oppression by singing or rapping, by graffitis, by all these things. So these activities were mostly performed by Afro-American people, Puerto Rican teenagers, or young adults that were searching something like a change, express their oppression, explain the way they feel. So this was in the 1970s when these rappers have like their first appearance, their first voice. Okay, the hip hop objectives, the hip hop culture objectives. First of all, is making a protest, making the politics, making the government, making the people know what they want, know what they care, know how they feel. The politics in this hip hop culture were something like a big mess between the United States, the police, the high class, were used to discriminate Latins and black people. So there's the hip hop was like a key, like a little hand that helped them express and take a voice over the things. The ethnic groups that we can find in the hip hop movement, in the hip hop culture, will be the Latins, mainly the Puerto Ricans, and also the black Afro-American population in the United States that was huge. That nowadays is still big population. So these two ethnic groups, they aim to protest, to search equality, to search freedom. In this freedom, they didn't search like a freedom of slavery or that kind of things, because that was already in the past. They were searching a freedom in the way they speak, in the way they behave, searching a way to those didn't have to justify their actions.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the cultural misconception that is mainly the focal point of this senior project. This cultural misconception about hip hop, I think it's mainly an interpretation thing. Because in one hand, you see this statements that I've heard multiple times, because I've been in I'm trying to be in this culture for more than 2 years, and that hip hop's violence. You see these videos with people with guns and with people with drugs and things. The thing they don't know, well, for example, the United States again, where is the, I think like a soup full of ingredients, and one ingredient I think and those ingredients can be social movements, and one ingredient is this hip hop. It was pretty hot. Why? It was needed. Why? The violence in those in the streets, or in the streets, in the avenues that hip hop was, it started to become a thing, were dangerous. There were people, there were dangerous. Bronx was, I don't know if still pretty dangerous. This hip hop, the musical part of hip hop rap helped this violence to decrease. Why? Because instead of gunfighting or gun shooting, they would rap battle. They will rap battle, and the winner of the battle, let's say it's a symbolic thing for the conflict to come to an end. And you see that as a misconception even today. For example, in the events that were happening at the school, we were multiple times asked, but why you don't think it's a hatred action to insult a partner? You're calling this guy a fat and this and that. What they don't see is the hug after the rap battle. Because why? Because these battles is a way of expressing, if of you to take out of your inner critic and just express yourself and say what you think at the moment. Doesn't mean you mean it. It's just the thing you think at the moment, and the way you transform it. That's why that hug at the end, it's so important. I think that is a way of interpreting things but not seeing the other side. So that's mainly because of a division occurring the hip hop culture uh, late 80s, early 90s, and it's the Coast Division. The Coast Division created gangsta rap, uh, and yeah, creating gangsta rap, and also created that really intellectual kind of rap of the East Coast, and that gangsta rap of the West Coast. And this gangster rap, on my point of view, is one of the main creators and things that make the hip hop culture to be seen as a hatred culture. Because now these people interpretation of the hip hop culture was not to express yourself and think, say the things you were suffering in your daily basis, that was drugs, killing, guns, but to think you are above the rest because you use guns and drugs and kill people. That interpretation has led, in my opinion, to this big misunderstood of the culture. And that leads us to the final point of the misconception, that is the disinformation. You see these people saying that they just hatred, but they don't see the West Coast intellectual rap. Or, for example, I think as if of an artist right now, I don't know, MF Doom, that makes his lyrics sound like it's just not it's now just not music. It's now it's language. Now it's language because the music that he creates, he uses a lot of language incorporation of techniques and variable things that you hear that and you think, wow, this guy is different. So I think information is a pretty big misconception of the culture. So now to finalize our presentation, we're gonna say how we're planning or how to change it in general. The first thing is education about this culture, and more than this culture in specific, I think that it would be an education about social movements, about the creation of social movements and their different things and their different arms, like the hippie movement of the hip hop culture movement. The other point that I see is the orientation that you give towards that movement. Because although, yes, there are some artists that are just vandalizing the culture they are a part of, there are other artists that are taking it to a high standards and a high way the culture they are apart from, and they teach the values that the hip hop culture has. And the last thing that we think that it has to change for it to be seen as just as respectful as other cultures is the stigmatizing the culture. Because now there is a stigma of, oh, you listen to rap, oh, you must use drugs. I've been said that multiple times. Oh, because you rap or you go to that place, you do drugs because you are with people that use drugs. That doesn't mean that. So yeah, thank you for listening and watching this kind of podcast presentation. And this was the
Hope you enjoy it.
yeah.
That's all for today, Mister. Thank you for being there to hear us.
Thank you guys very much for your contributions, and I look forward to having more continued conversations about hip hop and continue to produce more podcasts that we can share with the community. And so thanks for your contributions, guys.
Thanks. Bye.